October 2025. Federal marshals storm into a meeting room and slap handcuffs on one of YouTube's biggest automotive stars. Heavy D Sparks, the man behind Diesel Brothers and a multi-million-dollar empire, gets dragged out in front of cameras while he's supposed to be speaking at the governor's summit. 3 days later, he's sitting in a jail cell and the internet is losing its mind. But here's the thing nobody's talking about. This guy literally built everything from absolute zero. So how does someone go from having nothing to becoming a millionaire, only to end up behind bars? Heavy D wasn't born into money or connections. He grew up in Utah as the fourth kid in a military family, where discipline and hard work weren't optional. But when he was still a teenager, everything changed. His father got diagnosed with a brain tumor, and what followed were surgeries, hospital visits, and watching someone he looked up to slowly fade away. By the time Heavy D turned 21, his dad was gone. That kind of loss does something to you. It either breaks you down or lights a fire inside. For Heavy D, it was the fire. He threw himself into anything that kept his hands busy and his mind focused. Cars, trucks, anything with an engine became his obsession. While other kids his age were figuring out college plans or partying, he was already thinking about how to make something of himself. That military background his dad instilled in him didn't disappear. It just shifted into a different kind of mission. He wasn't fighting for his country anymore. He was fighting to prove that losing everything doesn't mean you can't build it all back. High school was where Heavy D discovered what actually made him feel alive. Auto mechanics, welding, working with his hands, that's where he belonged. College felt like the logical next step, so he enrolled at Weber State University. 1 semester. That's all it took for him to realize sitting in classrooms wasn't going to get him where he wanted to go. He dropped out, and everyone around him probably thought he was making the biggest mistake of his life. But Heavy D saw it differently. He didn't need a degree to understand engines or build trucks. What he needed was real experience, actual dirt under his fingernails. So he went to work for his uncle's construction business, operating heavy equipment and learning skills that can't be taught in a textbook. Bulldozers, excavators, massive machines that most people would be terrified to touch. He mastered them all. Every day was another lesson, another chance to prove he made the right call. While his former classmates were buried in student debt and lecture notes, Heavy D was out there building an actual foundation. Not for a career someone else designed, but for something entirely his own. Sometimes the craziest partnerships start with the dumbest mistakes. Heavy D met a guy named Diesel Dave at a church singles event, and they hit it off immediately. Both obsessed with trucks, both a little reckless, both ready to do something big. Heavy D invited Dave to the lake for a day on the water, and that's when things got interesting. He accidentally pumped gasoline into his diesel truck. Not just a little, he filled the entire tank. Now they had two options: call for help and look like idiots, or fix it themselves and still look like idiots, but at least learn something. They chose option 2. For hours, they sat there siphoning gasoline out of the tank by mouth, swallowing mouthfuls of fuel in the process, gagging and laughing at how ridiculous the whole situation was. But somewhere between the fumes and the bad decisions, they started talking about an idea. What if they built custom diesel trucks and sold them? What if they took this obsession and turned it into an actual business? By the time that tank was empty, Diesel Sellers was born. 2 guys, 0 funding, and a dream built on gasoline-flavored stupidity. They started small, building trucks in a garage, posting videos online, hoping someone would notice, and people did. Heavy D and Diesel Dave weren't your typical gearheads. They were entertaining, funny, and they built trucks that looked like they belonged in a Mad Max movie. Their Mega Ram Runner video went viral, racking up millions of views almost overnight. Suddenly, they weren't just 2 guys in Utah anymore. They were internet sensations. Then came the call that changed everything. Jay Leno wanted them on The Tonight Show. Not a small segment, a full feature showcasing their builds. They drove their custom trucks onto one of the biggest stages in entertainment, and America fell in love with them. Within months, Discovery Channel came knocking with an offer. A full television series called Diesel Brothers. The show that started as a wild idea between 2 friends was now a cable TV hit, pulling in millions of viewers every week. Heavy D went from operating construction equipment to becoming a household name. The kid who dropped out of college after 1 semester was now starring on national television, proving everyone who doubted him completely wrong. Success snowballed fast. Diesel Brothers wasn't just a TV show. It became a cultural phenomenon. Their YouTube channel exploded to over 4 million subscribers, each video pulling hundreds of thousands of views within hours. Heavy D wasn't just building trucks anymore. He was building an empire. The money started rolling in, and he spent it on the most insane toys imaginable. He bought one of Kanye West's military ripsaw tanks. He purchased a Black Hawk helicopter. These weren't just purchases, they were statements. Celebrities wanted in. Jake Paul showed up for collaborations. Other YouTubers and influencers started reaching out, hoping to catch some of that Diesel Brothers magic. Heavy D's Instagram following hit 3.8 million people, all watching his every move. He was living proof that you could start with nothing and end up with everything. The American dream on steroids, diesel fumes, and social media virality. But here's the problem with building something that big, that fast. The bigger you get, the bigger the target on your back becomes. And Heavy D was about to discover that some people weren't celebrating his success. They were watching, waiting, and preparing to tear it all down. A nonprofit called Utah Physicians for Healthy Environment filed a lawsuit that would haunt Heavy D for years. Their claim? Diesel Sellers was removing emission controls from trucks and encouraging rolling coal, blowing thick black smoke into the air. Environmental groups accused him of selling vehicles that violated the Clean Air Act, pumping out pollutants at levels that were straight up illegal. Tests showed some trucks were producing 36 times the normal amount of harmful emissions. Heavy D fought back hard, arguing this was about freedom, about building what you want without government overreach. But the courts didn't see it that way. In 2020, the ruling came down like a hammer, over $850,000 in fines, plus being banned from future violations. It was a massive financial hit, but Heavy D wasn't going to just roll over. He filed appeals, challenged the decision, and refused to back down. For years, the legal battle dragged on, draining money and energy. But there was one thing he absolutely wouldn't do: pay the attorney fees the nonprofit demanded. That decision, that refusal to give them one more dollar, would come back to destroy him in ways he never saw coming. Every appeal got denied. Every legal maneuver failed. The courts weren't budging, and neither was Heavy D. By 2025, the situation had reached a breaking point. He still refused to pay what he owed, convinced this was a principle worth fighting for. Then came October 2025, and everything exploded. Heavy D was scheduled to speak at the Governor's Summit on Economic Development. A huge honor, a chance to share his story on a massive stage. He never made it to the podium. Federal marshals showed up and arrested him right there in front of everyone. The charges? Contempt of court for refusing to comply with the judgment. They walked him out in handcuffs while cameras captured every second. For 3 days, Heavy D sat in Salt Lake County Jail. The same guy who'd been on magazine covers and television shows now wearing an orange jumpsuit. The irony was brutal. He was supposed to be talking about building the American dream, about turning nothing into something. Instead, he was behind bars, facing the consequences of a fight he refused to abandon. His empire wasn't just under attack anymore, it was crumbling.